In the quiet, coastal stretches of southern Cebu in the Philippines, stories often begin far away from fame, cameras, and global attention. Life there is shaped more by tides than trends, more by survival than spotlight. It is from this setting that Roland Abante's journey is often described, a man who once lived a life anchored in fishing, motorbike riding, and everyday struggle, only to later step onto one of the world's most watched talent stages. But the version of his story that reaches audiences is usually the polished one, a powerful voice, an emotional performance, and a standing ovation. What often remains untold are the years that built that moment, the sacrifices, the repetition of hardship, and the quiet persistence that never made it to television. This is not just a tale of sudden discovery. It is a long unfolding of character, shaped by family, poverty, discipline, and an unexpected relationship with music that grew in the most ordinary places, church pews, street corners, and karaoke gatherings. Behind the viral performance lies a deeper human story, one of responsibility at a young age, resilience in difficult conditions, and a dream that never looked like a dream until the world finally paid attention. What follows is a rewritten, expanded narrative of that journey, one that traces the path from a small fishing community to a global stage, and everything that the spotlight didn't fully reveal. 1. A coastal beginning in southern Cebu, approximately 250 words in the southern reaches of Cebu, lies a coastal environment where life is closely tied to the sea. Communities here are often small, tightly knit, and shaped by routines that revolve around fishing, weather patterns, and the daily uncertainty of the ocean. It is in a place like this that Roland's early life is often placed far removed from urban comfort or entertainment industry pathways. Growing up in such a setting meant that opportunities were limited, but responsibilities were abundant. Children in these communities often learn early that life requires contribution, not just curiosity. The sea is both provider and teacher, offering food on good days and challenging survival on difficult ones. In this environment, ambition does not always take the shape of fame or performance. Instead, it often looks like helping family, learning trades, and adapting quickly to whatever work is available. For many, including Roland, the idea of becoming known beyond the local area would have seemed distant, almost unrealistic. Yet coastal life also builds a certain emotional depth. The rhythm of waves, the solitude of early mornings at sea, and the unpredictability of daily catches shape patience and endurance. These traits, while developed for survival, later become unexpectedly useful in artistic expression and performance. Long before any stage appearance, the foundation of his identity was already being formed in this coastal world, quiet, demanding, and deeply formative in ways that would only make sense much later. 2. Family, responsibility, and early discipline, approximately 250 words within many rural Filipino households. Family structure plays a central role in shaping values and expectations. Roland grew up as part of a large family, where resources were limited but emotional bonds were strong. Being one of the younger siblings often meant learning not only from guidance, but also from observation, watching how older family members navigated hardship and responsibility. In such households, discipline is rarely taught through instruction alone. It is lived. Daily routines, shared labor, and collective effort become the unspoken curriculum of childhood. Helping at home, contributing to income when possible, and respecting the needs of the family unit are not extraordinary expectations. They are simply part of life. This environment naturally builds resilience. It also reduces the space for idle dreaming, not because imagination is discouraged, but because practicality is necessary for survival. Still, within that structure, personality begins to emerge. Some children become caretakers early, others become observers, and some quietly develop creative outlets. For Roland, responsibility and expression coexisted. While duty shaped his days, small moments of creativity began to surface in informal settings. These were not structured artistic pursuits, but spontaneous expressions, singing during gatherings, responding to music in everyday environments, and gradually developing confidence in his voice. This early blend of discipline and expression would later become important. It created a foundation where hard work and creativity were not separate paths, but parallel parts of the same life experience. 3. Life at sea and the reality of work. Approximately 250 words before music became a defining theme, work at sea was one of the most consistent parts of daily life. Fishing is not simply an occupation in coastal communities. It is a rhythm that dictates sleep, effort, and uncertainty. Days often begin before sunrise, with preparation that requires both physical strength and mental patience. Time on small fishing boats teaches endurance in a very direct way. Weather conditions change quickly, physical labor is constant, and success is never guaranteed. Some days bring abundance, while others return almost empty-handed. This unpredictability shapes a mindset where persistence becomes more important than reward. Alongside fishing, additional work such as motorbike transportation services often fills the gaps in income. Navigating narrow roads, carrying passengers, and working long hours under unpredictable conditions becomes part of a survival strategy. Rest is limited and energy is carefully managed. Within this lifestyle, music is not a profession, it is a release. It exists in the background, often blending into daily routines rather than interrupting them. Singing may happen while working, resting, or gathering with others, not as a planned pursuit, but as a natural expression. The physical demands of this life are significant, but they also build strength and stamina that later prove useful in other arenas. Long before any audience applauded him, endurance had already been trained through years of labor that required consistency rather than recognition. 4. Discovering music in everyday spaces. Approximately 250 words. Music did not enter his life through formal training or structured education. Instead, it emerged naturally through everyday environments where sound was part of community life. In many Filipino neighborhoods, karaoke is more than entertainment. It is a shared cultural activity that brings people together regardless of background. It is in these informal settings that vocal confidence often begins to develop. Without pressure or expectation, singing becomes an act of enjoyment rather than performance. Over time, repeated participation helps refine tone, control, and emotional expression, even without technical instruction. Church gatherings also play a significant role in shaping musical experience. Hymns, choir participation, and communal singing introduce structure and harmony. Within these spaces, voices blend rather than compete, creating an environment where musical sensitivity grows gradually. In these settings, recognition begins to appear in small moments. A familiar voice is noticed, a note is held slightly longer, or an emotional delivery stands out unexpectedly. These observations are not immediate indicators of future success, but they serve as early signals of potential. Importantly, none of this is pursued with the intention of fame. Music exists as a form of participation in community life. It is shared, not showcased. Yet over time, these repeated experiences build a foundation that becomes difficult to ignore once larger opportunities appear. What begins as casual expression slowly develops into something more defined, even before it is fully understood by the person experiencing it. 5. Hard work, struggle, and survival. Approximately 250 words. Daily life in a working coastal community leaves little room for uncertainty. Financial pressure is a constant presence. shaping decisions and limiting options. In such circumstances, multiple jobs are often necessary just to maintain stability. Fishing provides food and income when conditions are favorable, but it is not a guaranteed source of livelihood. Supplementary work, such as transportation services using motorcycles, becomes equally important. This combination of labor reflects a common reality in many rural regions where adaptability is essential. The physical and emotional toll of this lifestyle is significant. Long hours, early mornings, and unpredictable returns create a cycle that demands endurance. Yet within this cycle, individuals often develop a strong sense of responsibility toward family and community. Despite exhaustion, moments of expression still appear. Music remains present, not as an escape from life, but as a way of processing it. Singing becomes a quiet form of release after long days, offering emotional balance in a demanding environment. These conditions shape character in ways that are not immediately visible from the outside. Persistence becomes habitual, not intentional. Effort is continuous, not occasional, and dreams, if they exist, remain secondary to immediate needs. Still, it is often within such environments that strong artistic voices emerge, not because of comfort, but because of lived experience that carries emotional depth. 6. Local recognition and early competitions. Approximately 250 words before any national or international exposure, recognition begins at the community level. Local gatherings, small competitions, and town events often serve as the first platforms where talent is acknowledged outside familiar circles. Participation in singing contests is common in many regions where community entertainment plays a central role. These events are not necessarily large or professionally organized, but they carry emotional weight for participants. Winning, even a small prize, can represent validation far beyond its material value. For emerging singers, these moments are important not because of financial reward, but because they provide confirmation that their voice resonates beyond personal enjoyment. Even when outcomes vary, the experience contributes to growing confidence. However, progress is rarely linear. Not every performance leads to recognition, and not every effort results in success. Yet persistence remains a defining trait. Returning to participate again despite previous outcomes reflects a mindset shaped by resilience. At this stage, music begins to shift from private enjoyment to public expression. It is no longer just something done for personal satisfaction. It becomes something shared with an audience, however small. These early steps, though modest, lay the groundwork for larger opportunities. They create familiarity with performance, build emotional endurance, and gradually prepare an individual for environments far beyond local settings. 7. The moment of global attention. Approximately 250 words. When the opportunity to perform on a global stage finally arrives, it often feels sudden to outside observers. Years of preparation, struggle, and repetition are compressed into a single televised moment. The audience sees performance, but not the long history behind it. Standing in front of a large international audience requires more than vocal ability. It demands emotional control, confidence, and the ability to translate personal history into expression that strangers can understand. In such moments, lived experience becomes an unspoken advantage. The reaction from audiences is often immediate. Strong vocal delivery combined with emotional authenticity tends to resonate deeply, especially when paired with a background story that reflects hardship and perseverance. Viewers connect not only with sound, but with narrative. However, what is broadcast is only a fraction of the full experience. Behind the performance are years of preparation that are rarely visible. The transition from local singer to global recognition is not a single leap, but a long accumulation of smaller steps. For many performers, this moment becomes a turning point. It shifts identity from local participant to international figure, yet it also introduces new pressures, expectations, and public interpretation. What remains consistent, however, is the foundation built long before the stage, one shaped by discipline, survival, and continuous engagement with music in its most natural forms. 8. Public reaction and untold pressures. Approximately 250 words. Once a performance reaches global visibility, public reaction becomes immediate and widespread. Audiences respond with admiration, emotional engagement, and curiosity about the individual behind the voice. Social media amplification can rapidly transform a single appearance into an international talking point. However, public attention often simplifies complex stories. It highlights key emotional points while overlooking the extended journey that shaped them. As a result, narratives can become condensed into inspirational summaries rather than full human experiences. With recognition also comes pressure. Expectations increase, comparisons emerge, and personal identity can become entangled with public perception. The transition from private individual to public figure is not always seamless. There is also the challenge of maintaining authenticity. When audiences connect deeply with a particular performance, they often expect similar emotional intensity in future appearances. This can create tension between artistic growth and audience expectation. Behind the scenes, life continues to involve personal responsibilities, family commitments, and ongoing adjustment to new circumstances. Fame does not replace past realities, it overlays them. Despite these pressures, many performers continue to draw strength from their origins. The memory of earlier struggles often provides grounding, reminding them of progress made and values formed long before recognition arrived. In this way, public attention becomes both an opportunity and a challenge, offering visibility while demanding adaptation. 9. Life after the spotlight. Approximately 250 words. After gaining widespread attention, life does not simply shift into permanent celebration. Instead, it enters a phase of adjustment. New opportunities appear, but so do new responsibilities. Managing visibility becomes as important as managing performance. Professional commitments may increase, including appearances, collaborations, and creative projects. At the same time, personal life continues with its own demands. Balancing these two worlds requires careful navigation. One of the most significant changes is the expansion of influence. A single performance can inspire audiences across different countries, creating a sense of responsibility to represent not only oneself, but also one's background and community. However, success does not erase origins. Many individuals in similar positions maintain strong connections to their hometowns, family structures, and cultural roots. These connections often serve as emotional grounding. There is also a shift in perspective. What once seemed like distant dreams may now feel achievable for others watching from similar backgrounds. This creates a cycle of inspiration where personal success becomes collective motivation. Despite external changes, internal identity often remains closely tied to earlier experiences. The habits, values, and resilience developed during difficult years continue to shape decision-making and outlook. In this phase, life becomes less about arrival and more about continuation, building on what has already been established while navigating new expectations. 10. Music, storytelling, and creative expression. Approximately 250 words. As artistic identity develops further, music often evolves from performance into storytelling. Instead of focusing solely on vocal display, Songs begin to reflect personal history, emotional memory, and lived experience. Writing original material becomes a way to process the past. Themes such as hardship, family responsibility, perseverance, and hope naturally emerge. These are not abstract ideas, but lived realities translated into melody and lyric. This form of expression allows for deeper connection with audiences. While performances may impress, storytelling resonates on a more personal level. Listeners often find reflections of their own experiences within the narrative. Creative work also provides control over narrative. Rather than being defined solely by public interpretation, individuals can shape how their journey is expressed and understood. In this stage, music becomes both personal and universal. It carries individual memory while reaching listeners who may share similar struggles or emotions. The creative process is not necessarily about perfection. It is about authenticity, conveying truth in a way that feels honest and relatable. Through songwriting and artistic exploration, music becomes more than a career path. It becomes a form of documentation, preserving the emotional landscape of a life shaped by both hardship and hope. 11. Giving back and building a legacy, approximately 250 words. With recognition comes the opportunity to influence others, and for many artists, this influence becomes a platform for contribution. One of the most meaningful forms of this contribution is mentorship and community support. Efforts to support young talent often begin in familiar places, local communities, small towns, and underserved regions. These are areas where opportunities may be limited, but potential remains abundant. Creating pathways for young people involves more than encouragement. It includes access, exposure, and structured support. This can take the form of training, guidance, and spaces where talent can be developed without financial barriers. The idea of establishing programs or foundations dedicated to music education reflects a desire to transform personal success into collective opportunity. It is rooted in the understanding that talent exists widely, but opportunity does not. Mentorship also plays a powerful role. Direct interaction with aspiring performers allows for shared experience, practical advice, and emotional encouragement. For many young individuals, this interaction can be transformative. Beyond formal structures, storytelling itself becomes a form of giving back. Sharing personal history allows others to see possibilities within their own circumstances. In this way, legacy is not defined solely by achievements on stage, but by the number of lives influenced beyond it. Outro, a story still in motion, approximately 250 words. The journey from a small coastal community to a global stage is not a simple transformation. It is an accumulation of years, experiences, and quiet persistence. While public attention often focuses on defining moments, the deeper story exists in everything that came before them. What makes this journey compelling is not only the success, but the continuity of struggle, responsibility, and resilience that shaped it. The same environments that once demanded survival also produced the emotional depth that later resonated with audiences around the world. Yet even after recognition, the story does not conclude. It continues through new creative work, community engagement, and the ongoing process of navigating life in the public eye. Fame becomes not an endpoint, but a platform for further expression and contribution. At its core, this is a story about voice, both literal and symbolic. A voice developed in ordinary places, refined through experience, and eventually heard by audiences far beyond its origin. But it is also a reminder that behind every moment of recognition lies a long, often unseen path. And perhaps the most important part of the journey is not the stage itself, but what happens afterward, the decision to give back, to create opportunities for others, and to transform personal history into collective inspiration. The story continues, not as a finished narrative, but as an evolving one, shaped by every new step taken beyond the spotlight.